Hey, welcome back. Yvonne Wakefield's YouTube channel. I just realized the boys are wearing matching scarves to my shirt for no reason. It just happened. Monday nights when Arturo comes to set up this lighting situation, the boys know it's recording time and they both jump up on this couch, which they are not allowed to at any other time except when we record. So, last week I read chapter 30, Bucking It Up. Tonight I will read chapter 31, and chapter 32 is the end of the book. And just to refresh you, Babe in the Woods, Building a Life One Log at a Time is the first in a series of 3 books I have written about my experiences in a log cabin that I still own today, and that I will probably be going to again this weekend if I don't get snowed out. So just to refresh you, last chapter, Bucking It Up, I moved into the cabin. I'm learning to adjust to living alone inside the cabin. I focus on my college studies. I learn how to put on snow chains, which is a pain. I keep up my correspondence with Ms. Magazine that eventually results in a documentary they did several years ago called Yours in Sisterhood. And so tonight we are going to read chapter 31. It's 6 pages and it's careful of what I think. So if you just remember, the snow has just started to come down. I'm snowed in for the first time. I'm living alone all by myself. I'm 19 years old. I'm having to pack in and out 2.5 miles to my snowbound truck, chain it up, drive it into town. Chain it up, drive it down the county road, take off the chains at the highway, drive to town, do all my stuff, go back up, chain up the truck, and I have to be packing up the mountain by 3:30, 4 o'clock because it just gets dark there that early at this time of year, it's this time of year there now. When I was up there 2 weeks ago, it was literally 4:30 and it was beginning to get a little bit too dark to work outside. So by 5 o'clock, after falling around a couple times while I was splitting wood and moving things, I lit kerosene lamps and went in the cabin and built a fire for these guys because it was cold. Okay, careful of what I think. My circle of friends includes men with missing body parts, faces marred by chainsaws and tree butts, and women friends whose spa day is a VO5 home perm, Aquanet hairspray, or a manicure that begins and ends with the pointy part of a pocket knife, or just simply the luxury of a hot bath. The children I talk to believe in fairies or have learned by the age of 8 how to castrate a pig with a pair of pliers. Now that I'm snowed in, I'm pretty much out of range of even these friends. This means I spend most of my time at the cabin binge reading and thinking. One snowy afternoon, tired of Tamarak. Remember, Tamarak is my needy cat that always sucks the buttons on my shirt. Tamarak on my lap, I bookmark The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, lean back in the rocker because that book has started me thinking on my grandfather, a poor immigrant who nickeled together enough money working in rail and stockyards to buy a farm where he raised 6 children, my mother being the second born. I set the cat and Sinclair aside, stand and stretch, focus on snow piling on the porch railing outside, and continue a convoluted line of memory. I remember my mother telling me while people starved in the cities during the 1930s, her family never went hungry during the Great Depression because they lived on a farm and ate, unquestionably, whatever they raised there. I remember her telling me that as a child, one of her jobs on the farm was to make blood sausage. She described in detail how her father slit the neck of a pig and held it over a bucket. It was my mother's job to stir the blood with her hand. She would add garlic from the garden, black pepper, and chopped apple to sweeten the collated mix until it was stiff enough to stuff back into the swine's emptied intestines. These were roped high to cure over barn rafters. Maybe it wasn't the jungle, but the burlap sacks filled with rose hips hanging behind my wood stove that got me thinking about my family connections, withered, shriveled, pretty much dried up, like the blood-red pods inside a nappy sack. Those thoughts sent me back to my seat, and I repositioned Tamarak in the rocking chair, and he resumes kneading and sucking my sweater. Sinclair had also stirred up memories of Little Buck. Remember, that was the hamburger I ate when I wasn't eating meat. Stirred up memories of Little Buck, the beef industry, the conditions of slaughter, that I am what I eat, and all this thinking gets me feeling a little queasy, so I leave Sinclair alone for a bit and crack open The Pit and the Pendulum. That one story is as far as I would go with Poe up here, alone with my thoughts that can turn unpredictably as a wildcat. Tamarak continues seeking his mother's tit in my armpit, annoying me as I concentrate on reading. The snow has turned icy, stinging the windows, sounding like bacon frying, and it's frozen to the window pane like grease. Inside, the fire is so hot, I'm sweating. I am dressed for school. Remember, I take off my dirty clothes when I work outside, and then when I read my books and I write, I put new clothes on. It's still a habit I have today. I'm dressed for school in clean hand-creased button front 501s and a pale yellow Woolridge pullover. The collar of my flannel shirt folded over the rounded neck adds a parochial school propriety to my place in the rocker. Every so often, unhooking Tamarak in the process, I stand, stir the fire, and shake the sacks of rose hips to hasten their drying. When I sit back down, I readjust the cat and book sharing my lap. As I thumb the pages, that cat instinctively and continuously exercises its need for the mother taken from him when he was too young to be left alone. This is what I wish to be, left alone in peace to finish reading in the rocking chair. As I read, a cast iron pan of bread bakes away on the stovetop into a mix of red wheat, soy, and rye. I've added ground rose hips and honey. The fire crackles and snaps, and finally so do I. Irritated to distractions by Tamarak's kneading and drooling, I close Poe and carry that cat down below the cabin where I go to fetch more stove wood. I leave him there. Inside, it is so hot that to the time of bread baking, I do a striptease of sorts, removing first my sweater, soon after the flannel shirt Tamarak had soaked. As the stove grows hotter and hotter, I undress to the waist, my breasts like doves, belly up, banking the stove heap as I flip the round loaf. Tamarak is watching the show. Perched in the porch window, still opposite from where I stand, teasing stovetop bread, his meowing is far from applause, a cry as stinging as the snow that is pelting him against the glass. By the time the bread is baked and his dark fur is coated white, and I have stripped my underpants and continue to ignore my cat, whether he's crying about now or about what he never had and needed. We're separated only by a glass pane, and I controlled that cat's passage back inside where the atmosphere retained a sense of warmth I lost through my reading. We were on the same page, that cat and I was punishing him as I was punished myself whenever I felt needed. By the time the loaf was baked, I'd warm again to that cat, relented, opened the door, and Tamarak ran in. I pulled on my jeans, buttoned up my shirt, ate a piece of bread as I read, and Tamarak sucked my shirt until it was soon wet again. It was hard to concentrate on the page because that cat got me thinking about what I am made of. Like sausage, what's stuffed inside my skin is not always so sweet. At the cabin, everything is done when and how I want it, with no regard for another. I wake up, bed, eat, read, write, and draw. To vary my schedule a bit, I write draw, read, and keep a tight rein on my imagination, which could turn me into thinking like Poe. I eat as basically as I work and think. The greatest adventure of my day is to warm the frozen outhouse seat. My weekly visit to town makes me realize I am turning into a hermit. On the one run into town, I encounter an old man in the canned vegetable aisle of Chester's. Remember, Chester's is the grocery store I go to. It was then my center of the universe besides the laundromat and the library. His clothes are riddled with holes, some the size of a dime, others as big as a fist. The grimy denim jacket and gray wool pants seem to be the only thing bracing his skeletal frame from a permanent stoop. In the green bean section, one row downwind from him, I can see twigs, sawdust, dried gravy, or juice sluice perhaps, staining his matted mustache and beard. Varied ecosystems, I imagine, inhabit his many facial hairs, sustained, I don't know, whatever could have died and fell down from his liver-white hair. Unlike other shoppers who gave the old guy a wide berth, I stand beside him, sizing up the last item on my shopping list. Green beans. Whole or French cut. My shopping is taking longer than it should because I am scrutinizing from my periphery my fellow shopper. He holds out 2 cans of pork and beans at arm's length, squinting. I figure comparing prices. I fancy my own choices. Finally, brand loyalty, not cost, means cans of green beans grown in the Ho Valley win out, and the old guy turns as he hears them land in my cart. He looks over at me and I glance at him. Like wary dogs, we size up, sniff out one another. Where have you been? What did you last eat? In Chester's canned vegetable aisle, we know we've just come out of the hills by the way we dress, in the way we share a lonely hangdog kind of stare as we each decide what we will chew on for the coming weeks. The old guy decides on Del Monte pork and beans and tomato sauce. He tosses can after can in his cart, nearly exhausting the shelf supply. Pork and bean cans roll off 4 sacks of flour, 3 of rice, and 4 2-pound cans of Folger coffee. Must be a miner, I figure, supplementing with store-bought provisions what he cannot score with a rifle or a trap. Like other men before him, lured by gold, he likely arrived too late on the scene to get rich mining the tail end of the tuckered-out mother lode. But he still keeps looking. These old miners live in and around Greenhorn, Sumter, and Canyon Mountain. They scratch out a living panning, sluicing, shifting through tailings or prying open boarded-up shafts. Once or twice a year, they cash in their finds and get enough money to buy whatever they cannot shoot or skin. They live in scabbed-together shacks or log cabins chinked with moss and newspaper and come to town every month or so. When a few months pass and a regular old-timer has not been seen in town, it's pretty well assumed he's dead. A few springs before I started building, the weathered corpse of one of these miners was found slumped against a fir trunk near Greenhorn. He'd started down the mountain for town, but weather or his heart stopped him cold. On a pencil list in his pocket of his jacket was written, flour, rice, coffee, and beans. At least this is what I was told. My shopping cart includes apples, carrots, toilet paper, Dove facial soap, Taster's Choice, and cat food. On the way to checkout, I must pass Miner. I hold my breath and count 1001, 1002, 1003, a process that begins 5 feet before I get anywhere near enough to pass him. At 1009, we make brief eye contact, and I inhale and hold it. There's a dart of recognition sparked between people who know they've held their own company too long. I want to extend a, "Hi, how are you doing?" yet stop short of a casual greeting when I catch his drift. 1010, 1011, I exhale deeply, and Miner is on my heels. I stop by the shelved tabloids just before the checkout stand and let him pass as I thumb through the newest edition of Weekly World News. Remember that Weekly World News? There's like aliens make love to your weed eater and like all that stuff. I used to love that magazine. I don't think it's printed anymore. Miner pushes his cart past me. 1001, 1002. I lose count and hold my breath again. Our gazes meet. His glance slides to the floor and mine freezes on the tabloid headlines. I made love to an alien made love to my wheelbarrow. No, that issue didn't have the weed eater. And so on. I peer over the paper, watching as Miner lifts each sack and can out of the cart, grouping them on the black conveyor belt. There is only one checkout open. I recognize the woman manning this stand as Donna. Her smile is as wide as her face, her hair the color of an overripe peach you would never in your right mind pick to eat unless you were tripping. Donna is written on the name badge pinned above breasts supported by triple D cups. There is no, "Hi, how are you?" or "Howdy do" from Donna, who normally bubbles with questions and advice. There is only Donna's blank face as the Miner checks out. "That'll be 20, and I can't hear the rest," Donna says, never engaging more than a receipt, not even a thank you or have a nice day, nor is Miner extended more than a motley money he jimmies from a leather pouch. He counts out the exact amount, including coinage. Donna handles each dollar bill like a dirty diaper. After the swinging door closes behind Miner, Donna sprays the air around her with pine-scented air freshener. Whew! She waves her arm. He comes in here about every month or so. Always smells like roadkill, too. Donna puts the spray can behind the register, hands on her thin waist as if to draw my attention there. I've waited until Miner's outside to approach the checkout. "Find everything all right, hun?" Without waiting for my answer, she begins ringing up my groceries. "I use them French cut beans, too, in casseroles." Donna punches 29 cents and the times 6 button on her cash register. "Mix them with a can of Campbell's cream and mushroom soup. Top them with French's onion, the dried ones in a can. She smacks her lip and plunks half a dozen green giant cans into the paper sack. "Take it. You got cats that like Friskies. Mine do too. I got 3 cats, all fat as pigs." Donna chortles on my bags, my groceries, and hands me a receipt along with, "You have a nice day now, hun." In the parking lot, I add to my already loaded pack. Only 2 more stops, the post office and the hardware store, and I'll be on my way back up to the mountain early in the day. At the post office, I park tank next to a dull blue indented Ford with rough board siding. It is nosed directly into one of the 4 parking spots in front of the liquor store right beside the post office. Miner sits behind the wheel. He's still sitting there staring straight ahead when I return with my mail. He is still behind the wheel when I arrive back from True Value with an adhesive roll of indoor insulation and caulking tubes. As I open the door to my truck, a man inside the liquor store turns the closed sign to open. Half bent over, Miner gets out of his truck, shuffles into the liquor store to buy something. I figured to patch the kind of holes filled by emptying a bottle. I know about those kinds of holes. I still have some as big as a fist. I first tried filling them one afternoon above the frozen Minnesota River, where a family of chocolate-eyed angels Googled-eyed heavenward. Since then, I've just found it more soothing to stuff them with pink fiberglass insulation and 8-penny nails driven in hard. Right now, if I had a thermos filled with hot chocolate, I'd be waiting for Miner when he came back to his truck. I blocked his dented door before he could get inside and stowed the 2 brown paper sacks behind the frayed bench. I'd hand him a cup filled to the brim there with a thermos in the hand and watch him drink. He'd sigh, wipe chocolate from his mustache. I'd take his empty cup, step back and say, "Please, sir." Would you like some more? All right, we have one more chapter to go. It'll be a short one next week. And we will be done with Babe in the Woods, building a life one log at a time. And then we will be into Babe in the Woods self-portrait that takes up in my early 20s, about the time frame where I had these jobs where I could actually spend 7 or 8 summers up at the cabin. So, hope you enjoyed the last chapter. Remember to follow me on my YouTube channel, Yvonne Wakefield, podcast also. And as always, stay hydrated. Bye-bye.